Now, characteristics of film, there are many characteristics of film. Okay, if you place a film in front of you, you will find various characteristics. So, what I did is, it will be easier for you to understand, is I divided the characteristics into two parts, and that is the characteristics we see in the early films and the characteristics that we see in the contemporary films. Okay, so in the early films, these early films started, especially from the time of 1896 to 1907. During this time, there were absolutely no use of much editing techniques, or there were no camera movements and other characteristics. So let's indulge into the characteristics of the early films. Now, early films characteristics are basically referred to as the primitive mode of representation, that is also known as the PMR. So, firstly, there is no rate of actuality. Whatever was shown on a particular film, there was no actuality. Everything was fragmented, and whatever actuality came was actually brought out by the Lumieres when they started documenting lives of real people. So, before that, there were no actuality. For example, if you have seen, you must see the movies that are given in the study materials so that it is easier for you to understand these characteristics. If you see Trip to the Moon by George Méliès, you will understand that there is no actuality. You cannot think of landing on a moon on a one fine morning. So there is no rate of actuality. Next, we come to concealed camera. So, since at that point of time, big cameras were used, they were larger in size and they were very fit and hard, what happened was the cameras were concealed, and they were not like, they couldn't move the camera to shift the focus from one character to another character. So, therefore, mostly concealed camera or even cameras were hidden sometimes from the actors to document their natural act were used. Therefore, you will see that whenever you are watching a film from that point of time, you will see that there are no camera movements. The cameras are static and they are hard in nature as well. Next is non-linearity of action. What is non-linearity of action? Non-linearity action is, suppose there is a frame and an actor needs to be inside the frame, that is the center of the frame. But since the cameras weren't able to move, the actors weren't often out of the center position. They were just roaming inside the frame from one place to another. There was no particular focus, right? And there was no centering of action. There was totally a discenteredness of action. The idea that the primary character or the object will be in front of the camera, that is the center of the camera, was not known to many of the filmmakers. Then we come to the widespread use of backgrounds. This is a very interesting part because during that point of time, there were no other technicalities used when a film was particularly made. So what happened was, since there were absence of any kind of fancy lighting or any 3D point of lighting or any other background or foreground lighting, what they used were painted backgrounds. If you have seen the film Nosferatu or Dr. Cabinet of Caligari by Robert Wind, that is a German expressionist film, you will see that most of their backgrounds are painted, and that painting is done to bring an effect into the film since lightings were not used, right? Therefore, painted backgrounds were used. In India, you can see the use of painted backgrounds during the time of Dadasaheb Phalke in his films, and also Babu Rao Painter. They were basically famous for using painted backgrounds. And since black and white, all the films were black and white, they used tonal colors as well. That is, when it is black and white, you need to use colors that have a deeper impact on your eyes. For example, the usage of red. Dadasaheb Phalke was very much known for using the color red as one of his painted backgrounds because it creates a tonal effect. It creates a deeper impact behind you. Because you will see that most of the early films, the background, there is no depth. It is basically a painted background behind you, and you will see that there is leaves painted, and in a particular studio I'm talking about, leaves are painted, certain birds are painted. But when you are working on a studio from contemporary films, you will see that you will not be able to differentiate whether it is a studio or it is a real place, because various backdrops are used, not the painted ones. So in early films, painted backgrounds were very much in use. Next comes the tableau format. What is a tableau format? Now, placing of the characters which were long away from the camera. Now, what they did was, suppose there is a camera, that's a big camera that they were using at that point of time, and the actors or the scene that is taking place was placed like far away from the camera. Therefore, what they missed was the facial expressions of the actors. When you will see Trip to the Moon or Workers Coming Out of the Factory by Lumiere Brothers, you will see that you cannot actually locate or see the facial expression of the actors. Okay, you will not be able to see, you will be able to see what they're doing, where they're going, what is happening inside the screen, but you will see a mixed expression coming out from each of them because there is no linearity. All right, so it is a tableau format. It was placed in front without any aligned movement, right? And then dependence on chance. Now, dependence on chance or coincidence to a greater extent was one of the basic characteristics of PMR. Why? Because when you see the film Trains Coming by Lumiere Brothers, you will see that they were actually waiting for the train to arrive on the platform. Okay, so they let the train arrive at the platform and then the passengers coming out. So they were waiting for that particular moment. It was not pre-decided that the train will come and then they will start the shoot. It is actually a dependence on that particular chance that the train will come, and henceforth they will start recording it. So these were the characteristics that are basically used in the early films. Also, there were characters when there are characteristics. Of course, I want to add here is that the characters or the actors in the film often used to look directly into the camera in early films. You know why this used to happen? This used to happen because when people used to watch that on bigger screens, they were able to create a direct link with the actor, since actors from that time were basically superiors, right? When we see Dadasaheb Phalke's films, we see that the actor is someone who is supreme, who is the good, who is the big man there. He is going to give orders looking at the camera. He's going to, suppose someone is portraying Ramchandra, so he is going to portray all the goodness in him, and when he is giving blessing, he is looking directly into the camera because he is going to link with the audience. There is a space that has been created because he is connecting with the people, and vice versa is happening when the audience is actually linking to that of the superior figure, because they are in a world where according to them it is entirely superior. They are like they're linking to God, but on the other hand it is actually the actor. So the actor is making it work to make them believe that yes, I am the god figure and I am giving you blessing. So in order to create a link, they used to look at the camera often. Okay, so it is often known as it is often, the term used here is often known as the primitive frontality. So you see the word frontality is used to looking in front of the audience. Okay, so the audience is looking at the actor as well as the actor is creating a link with the audience through the camera. So these are the basic characteristics of early films, that is a primitive mode of representation. Now let's come to the contemporary films, that is the institutional mode of representation. So after 1902 or 3, many editing techniques came into place and other mode of representation also came into place. So the main characteristics are constructed out of sequence of shots. Now, since in early cinema only one cut were used or sometimes two to three, in contemporary films we will see that a sequence of shots are recorded. Okay, so since there are more editing techniques that has come into place, so constructed out of sequence shots. Next is three-dimensional space is created. Now see, previously they used white painted backgrounds, right? Now in the contemporary days, they are using three-dimensional space. Okay, so in the studios, what they are creating are they are creating three-dimensional space using the three-point lighting. So these lightings are used to create a deeper impact that something behind you is actually real. It is not fabricated. Something behind you is real, and that is why this three-dimensional space is created. Then came the new cinematic techniques such as editing and lighting. We will learn later that D.W. Griffith was the very first and known person to bring out different editing techniques, storytelling techniques such as editing, lighting, different types of lighting were used. Then we can see that the characters are psychologically individuated. Since see, in the contemporary period, the camera size became smaller and it became flexible. The cameras were used and very new movements were brought into existence. Now, since in the previous days you were not able to identify the facial expressions of the actors, right? Now you can understand what the actors or the characters are up to. They are given psychological complex characters. They are given a particular character that is very much complex to play, and yet they are putting it on screen because they know that how they are going to act on the screen, or how the camera, because the characters and the camera person has a certain link. Okay, so the characters are psychologically individuated. Then comes the either the style or content is given importance. It is very true that today's cinema we can see that either the style of making is given importance or the basic content. Otherwise, everything is commercialized nowadays. And then frequent use of close-ups. Now, since camera became more flexible, so close-ups were used to make the facial expressions of the characters or the actors more prominent towards the audience. Now, there are much more characteristics of films like similarity, ubiquity, and creating a sense of equality throughout the screen. Okay, a screen should not look that the left side is heavy or the right side is not heavy. So there must be a thing of equality that must be there. So these are the characteristics that you can divide based on the early films and contemporary films. Other than just diving into all the characteristics, it helps you remember the different types of things that took place in the early films and the things that are actually happening right now. So I hope this is clear. This is very important to know what were the characteristics of film before you indulge into the very other aspects of film.